First of all, it was amazing to hear how many of you have not been to Israel, and that you're all excited to go. Did I say y'all? Y'all excited to go? Did I do that okay? I know that some of you have not been since USY. I heard that. I used to run those trips as well, and some haven't been in 30 or 40 years. Israel changes so much, so rapidly that even when you go to archaeological sites, there's so much digging going on. They're saying, "Oh, this is different from what I remember it," because it is different. For example, right now, and this Rabbi Solomon, you don't even know this, but they're digging underneath the Western Wall Plaza. Like when you're standing at the Kotel, underneath you is a whole archaeological dig, finding out what's going on there, and that never happened before. So just so you know that all this is happening, and who knows what they're going to find by the time June, July comes of next year. Israel's when the world steps one step forward, Israel steps 3 steps forward in everything. And it's pretty amazing what goes on here on a regular basis. And people are thirsty or hungry, I don't know what the word is, of hearing about all these things that Israel does. Not only it's history, but it's also technology and it's agriculture and everything that it does. There's so much advancement. Even wine has become, people come to Israel just for wine tours now. Someone just turned to me last week saying, we want to go on a wine tour in Israel. That's all we want to do because we heard the wine in Israel has become unbelievable. So yes, we're going to go to a winery. I don't know if we're going to do one every day, unless, you want to get drunk all day, but we could do that if you want. I don't know. It's up to Rabbi. I'm fine. We do l'chaim every place we go. Okay. So what I'm going to do is Rabbi and I planned together this trip. We didn't know who was going to come. So we geared it also, for adults as well, but also to have children. But we see that when I say children, it could be teenagers. But we see that there might be mostly adults. We might have children. We might have both. We don't know what's going to turn out. We'll see who signs up eventually. And we will adjust the itinerary based on the people who are coming. So even if we have 2, 4, 6, 8 kids coming, we'll make sure that they have a good time as well. If we get all adults, then we'll adjust it that way as well. It really depends on who comes. And we are used to that. And we definitely are happy to host whoever comes. I'm going to share with you right now the tentative itinerary that we put together. I'm not going to go too much into details because there's still a long time to go. And from this point on, we'll go through the motion and people that need to sign up, they will. And once we see who signs up, we're going to adjust accordingly. Of course, based on what we heard, many people here are first time, and we want to make sure that that's taken care of as well, that we're going to do those basic things that everybody really has to do when they're in Israel. So I'm going to share my screen right now. Here we go. Can everybody see my screen? If not, just holler out. If yes, if I don't hear anybody, then we're fine. Okay, so the trip is planned for arrival in Israel on June 20th. The Rabbi and I will discuss in terms of arrival, and this is something that we need to answer probably quickly, is if we want to come as a group together, and this is something that, again, Rabbi Solomon and I will discuss, or we'll have people saying, listen, the trip starts on June 20th, we will gather together at the airport at this time, and that's when the trip starts. And people can come earlier, and we'll, of course, help you out, or people will come the morning of, and we'll just tell you more or less what time the trip starts. We're not doing too much on that day because people land at different times. If we see everybody's arriving at the same time at 9 o'clock in the morning, then we can, of course, add to that day. So the first day, we're going to have a welcoming. First thing that we're going to do, the idea is to plant trees to add and to beautify Israel. Israel had some forest fires recently, and any additional help with that is always welcomed. Not only that, this past year was, I don't know if everybody knows what this is, Shemitah year. Shemitah year is like the 7th year, like Shabbat, and you're not allowed to plant anything. So we just went over we just finished the Shemitah year, so even now it's a good thing to do. We'll go in straight to Jerusalem, and we'll do welcoming, and we'll stay at our hotel. The next day, you can see already that we gear this towards adults and kids. Personally, I like the kid option better than adult option, but that's up to you. The first thing we'll do is we'll dive into the archaeology of Israel, and we'll understand how archaeologists work, discover things on our own. We'll do an archaeological dig that's an active dig, and we'll understand all about Israel through digging. I wrote here adults that people who don't want to get their hands dirty is to understand what has been dug already and to see things how they're developed after they're dug. And then you don't get your hands dirty. So that's the first thing. It's a great introduction. We'll travel to Jerusalem and head to the Jewish quarter and the Old City. And you can see here on Mount Zion, we'll visit the Room of the Last Supper and the Tomb of King David. Here we're already, grasping, oh, here we have Christianity and Judaism at the same time. And yes, that's what it's all about, is understanding that there's others besides, it's not only a Jewish state, but it's also other things, and to understand the contrast between the two. We'll be in the Jewish quarter. We'll go to the Western Wall tunnels, which is a phenomenal place to go. And that will be our great first day of being in Israel. Again, I'm not going to go now too much in detail. The second day, we're going to be talking about a little bit of Israel today, the Knesset. I don't know if you know this, but we've had 5 elections in the last 4 years. Doesn't look good on us, but now we have probably for the next 3 or 4 years will be one government. There won't be, it's a little bit more sturdy. We'll go to the Yad Vashem Holocaust Museum. If there are people that have been to Israel and don't want to do that again, I just tell you that the Yad Vashem is, whoever hasn't been here since 2004, you won't recognize Yad Vashem. They changed everything. But if you've been here since then and been to the new Yad Vashem, then we'll have other options as well based on people who have that. Then we're going to go into Gush Etzion. We'll be talking a little bit about politics, but more about Arab-Israeli conflict, but not the conflict part of it, more the idea of maybe how people are trying to bridge the gap. We'll do a little bit of that as well. I mean, it's very important also to involve political things as well. The next day, we'll be going down the Judean desert. Whoever wanted the temperature to be at a certain level, this day, I can't promise it because we're going to be in the Dead Sea area, and that automatically makes it hotter, but hopefully we'll do a little bit water stuff like the Engedi and the Dead Sea. We can't go without seeing Masada, of course, riding a camel. All this will be on Friday. After 3 full days of go, we need a little bit of rest, and that's what Shabbat is all about, is rest. And we'll have people in the morning relaxing, going to the pool, maybe going to synagogues, visiting things on their own. The idea is to give you a little bit of breathing space. And then we will head in the afternoon. We'll have maybe a speaker come, talk about what's going on in Israel today, or maybe a little bit about Jewish philosophy. I mean, we're gonna maybe elaborate on that a little bit later when we know who the speaker is. Maybe some walking tours in the area, getting the ambiance of Shabbat in Israel, and that's a great way to end the day. We'll do Havdalah, and you guys will be able to enjoy Israel on Saturday nights. Sunday, we're gonna say goodbye to Jerusalem, and we're gonna head up north to the northern part of Israel, the Galilee and the Golan. This day will be in the Golan. Of course, we're going to stop for a brief introduction at Kasar Yehud, which I'm not sure Rabbi Solomon has been to. The place where it says there where the children of Israel crossed with Joshua. Continue up north to some beautiful natural pools. Go up to the Golan, understand the complexity of the Golan, its history, the ancient synagogues, and also checking out the talking about modern Israel in the Yom Kippur War. We're going to also advise, by the way, of things to read and maybe things to see. There are many shows that were done about Israel today. In this case, there is an excellent show called, I don't know, Rabbi, if you've seen it, called Sha'at Ne'ilah, that talks about this specific site in the Yom Kippur War. And we'll be staying up in the north. The next day, we'll be continuing up in the Golan and a little bit in the Galilee, and doing maybe an Israeli cooking workshop when we're up there, which will include dinner. The next day, we'll be in Tzfat in the afternoon, but in the morning, we'll hear a little bit about the Lebanese border, do some rafting. If we don't have any children, then maybe we'll do something else. But I don't know if you guys want to do rafting, makes you feel young a little bit. And go to Tzfat, get a winery done in that area, which the Upper Galilee is rich with its wine and its grapes because of its altitude and its area. And really, there's wineries everywhere, so we can choose which we want to do. The next day, we're going to head towards Tel Aviv that day, but in the morning, we're going to maybe hike in Arbel. Again, depends who we have. We're going to also, a very important part of Israel is meeting local and maybe the challenges of some of the people here. The idea is to go to Yamin Ord, which is a children's, I would say, teenager at-risk immigrants, mainly from Ethiopia. We'll have lunch with them, and then we'll head down to Caesarea, one of the most fascinating sites in Israel in terms of archaeology and history, and head to the modern city of Tel Aviv. We'll do an evening tour of Old Jaffa. It's nice to do an evening tour in the summer because it's a little bit cooler. The next day will be our last day in Israel. We'll be focusing about Israel today, specifically innovation, arts, a little bit of politics, of course, with a graffiti tour, and kind of summarize everything at the new interactive Anu Museum. And then we'll have a checkout and we'll have a final dinner and we will head back home. Again, this itinerary, I'm going to stop sharing. This itinerary is, of course, up for changes. If there are things that we need to add, to change, to whatever it is, we will, based on the people who are coming. If there are people that are first-timers and second-timers, we can also maybe adjust it to that. The more people we have, the more also flexibility we have is to offer options as well. So that's something to take into consideration as well. I think I will end with that. Of course, we're not going to go into details about what to pack and how much money to bring. That goes much, much later. But by the way, we have put in, I would say, low five-star hotels, not really high-end hotels. Last trips, we've done more four-star hotels, and we decided maybe to up it up a little bit. We can also adjust that based on whatever it is. But right now, these are the hotels that we have booked. And I guess that's it. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. I hope that was okay.
Fantastic, JJ. All right. So how about this, guys? If you have a question, well, I mean, JJ, is there more to a specific presentation? Because I know people are definitely asking about costs and when to get your deposit in and stuff like that. Should you do that right now? Is that possible to do right now?
Yeah. Well, let's put it this way. Deposits are important as soon as possible. They're refundable till about 3 months before. So we want to also, we have a lot of people here, and we don't want to say to anybody, listen, we're too full and we can't take you, but we want to know how many people are coming. The more people that come, of course, the cheaper it gets. At some point, we'll have to cap it. I would say, I'll talk about it with you, Rabbi, and see where we want to cap it, but around 35 to 40 people. We don't want more than that. Actually, our first trip, we had close to 50, and it was great, but it was, a lot of people. But the most important is to put down deposits as soon as possible. I don't know, Rabbi, did you share the costing at all?
I did not have that yet in final form.
So let me share that with you. Again, this is tentative based on the itinerary that we have and the hotels that we have. First.
And JJ, one of the questions people ask me is, will inflation affect the cost that you show today?
Okay, so that's a very good question. Usually I kind of keep it that, even though if, let's say, the dollar gets weaker compared to the shekel, I say it's okay and we'll absorb the cost, but I need to give myself some sort of a safe zone. Wow. So right now the dollar is worth 3.47 today. And it's been around 3.4 to 3.5 in the past 3-4 months. But if the dollar goes under 3.3, we're going to need to adjust the cost basically. So I don't know if that answers the question or not.
Yep.
Hopefully it won't, and it will. But if it goes to 3.25, it won't change that much. A little bit, maybe $50. I don't know. I have to work it out. But so I don't know if that answered that question.
Okay.
I'm going to share the costing sheet that we have. 1 second. Where is it? Here. Okay. Here we're going through all the things it includes. It tells you, first of all, the hotels at the Inbal Hotel, the Carlton in Tel Aviv, remote resort in the north. That's more 4-star, I would say, but in the north it's a little bit more rustic anyway. We'll have late checkout on the last day, which is very important. Again, we need to get authorization for that. Breakfast every day. I don't know if someone mentioned the breakfasts in the higher end hotels are even better than what you're used to. We'll have an amazing guide with us, which I think I might have booked already. I'm not 100% sure. We have a bus, transportations to the airport at the end, all the entrance fees and activities. We have about 9 meals besides the breakfast that we have included. We have water every day, all that stuff. And service charge, these are the costs that we have currently. We wrote here the prices, as you can see, they decrease as the amount of people that we have here. If you want to be in a single room, there's of course an extra cost. And you'll notice that the price does not include the flights and anything that's not mentioned about pretty much. Tips, of course, are not included. We could add them in, or you could just do that separately. That I'll discuss with Rabbi, of course. So that is that.
So JJ, how about this? We can put this, once you send this to me, because I don't think I think I had this maybe from a long time ago, and then I can send it out to the list. Does that sound okay?
Okay, for sure, I'll send it to you. Okay. And that's it. I'm happy to for any questions for me or Rabbi, and yeah.
So just to be clear, then the range of cost depends on the amount of people that actually put down deposits actually come is somewhere approximately $4,500, $4,472, I think it was, down to something.
40 people, by the way, 40 people, it was just over 4,000. So
I understand, right? So that's the kind of rate between 4,000 and 4,500 approximately, not including plane tickets. All right, this is now the time for a question. Let's start with the Fishers. What do you say?
Yeah, how much is the deposit?
It's $500 per person.
Okay.
And we'll send a link. I'll send a whole letter with everything, the costing and the itinerary, everything I'll send to Rabbi Solomon, and he'll be able to send that out.
So just be clear, 500 per person. So if you have children, that includes that's a person, right? Okay.
And of course, the deposit goes to your overall cost at the end. It's not that it's additional. So that will be
right. So what I would say is in the past, and we haven't established this yet, but in the past, we usually made like the first kind of deadline-ish kind of thing for deposits, somewhere around like February 1st or something like that. Like after we give like people January, New Year to go, and that's it. And that usually means those people come in. And then if we do have a cutoff, so the earlier you submit it, obviously you reserve your spot earlier. 500 per person. Okay. Is that Bonnie?
I see Meredith has a question.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Or Meredith. Yep. Bonnie. Yeah.
As far as traveling with smaller kids, would we be paying 2 rooms? Would we be in 1 room? How would that affect the price?
Excellent question. Excellent question. So there's okay. So first of all, a third in a room, a third adult in a room, or a third child in a room is going to be much cheaper than the full price. So that's a third. So that means if you come with 1 child, then they join your room, then they're cheaper. If you have 3 children, for example, then you would have another room. So the 2 kids would probably stay the same, but the third child will probably be much less. So we're talking about maybe a discount of $1,000 more for the child. If you have 2 kids, they have to be under the age of 13. If they're under the age of 13, the Inbal Hotel and the Remote Resort Hotel have an option for 4 in a room as long as the kids are under 13. The Carlton doesn't. So that will give you an overall discount for your family if you say to me, we need a family package. So we'll just need to know that information, and I'll send that information individually for the people who need that.
So 13 is considered adult.
Yeah, but it's gray, so we'll call them a child. So that will work.
Yeah, all right. I was just going to ask that because she's going to be 13.
I said under 13. The hotels say 12 and under, but it's okay. It'll be fine if it's like 13 and 10. that's fine. We'll work with that.
Okay, great. So I see some hands raised here. Diane Clark. Go ahead, Diane. What do you say? Unmute, Diane.
You're on mute though, Diane.
Okay, there. Am I off mute?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm traveling alone, and how much difference would it be for a single room? Not to have a roommate.
Right. So I think it was about $1,400 extra to be in a single room throughout. I think that was what it was, or something like that.
Okay.
Sometimes we have trips and people say, listen, I'm traveling alone. If there's anybody else traveling alone, I would be happy to share with them, or maybe you want to be alone. So just so you know that those two options are out there.
I don't have to be, but I don't know anyone else. So, if somebody else is willing, I'm willing. So.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you, Diane. All right, Showmans.
Can you make any recommendations if we want to stay on longer than the 10 days, including a side trip to Eilat, or perhaps even a side trip to Jordan or to Cairo, so that we can figure out additional costs for that?
So I'll tell you something, this is the Schulmans. Just recently, we finished a synagogue from Los Angeles. And out of the 30 people who came on the trip, 18 of them all wanted to go to Petra afterwards, to Jordan, to Eilat and Petra. So we organized for all 18 for them because it got cheaper. The more people you had, is we organized a whole side trip for them to Eilat to Petra. We organized their flights from Tel Aviv to Eilat. We organized a full day trip to Petra, and eventually to come back to the airport in Tel Aviv on time. So the answer is yes, either individually, or of course, if more people want to join in, that's also okay. Some people prefer to travel alone. Some people prefer to maybe want to do a group activity. So we can definitely help that to assist doing that as well. You'll need at least 2 more days at the end to do that. But if you're interested, once you sign up, you can say, listen, I want to book the flights. When should I book the flights in order for me to do this side trip?
And would you recommend at the end of or at the beginning of the trip? And when would you recommend that we arrive in Tel Aviv for the start of these 10 days? And are you also talking about a late evening departure at the end of the 10 days?
I'll answer the last question. Yes, most flights that leave Israel to North America leave at around midnight, some 11:30, some 12:30. Those are the flights that I'm talking about. Unless you're planning to extend, also then it's later. In terms of when do I suggest to do the Petra, whatever works for you better in terms of your work, in terms of your family, in terms of whatever it is. Most people usually do it as an extension afterwards in this case, it'll be the weekend. But whatever works better for you. And in terms of arriving, look, that first day I left very, what's the word? Kind of empty because ideally to come in morning, afternoon is great. And then we can all get together at the airport, do a couple of stuff, make our way and ascend up to Jerusalem, do a beautiful welcoming, and all check into the hotel together. So ideally in the morning, not in the evening times. Although some of the flights land around 4 or 5 p.m., they won't be able to do that first day, and they'll just meet us for the opening dinner. That's pretty much how it will work.
Great. Thank you.
So, JJ, I was going to just chime in here about there's a question from Robin about flights, and some people have asked this before. So when I first started doing these trips, 20-something years ago, it was very common to have group flights. In fact, the first trips I did with Beth Meyer, we did group flights. But over time, what I've experienced, I think you know better, is people using their own mileage, all kinds of reasons people get better deals personally by using their own flying. So, and then sometimes the flight that you got as a group was actually slightly more expensive. It wasn't necessarily better. So can you just speak that for, so if there's interest in a group flight, is that something it's wise? That's something you recommend? What would you say about the whole issue?
So there's pluses and minuses. Like you said, the cost of a group flight, believe it is usually about $100, $150 more.
More, correct.
Because it's refundable till 3 months before the trip. When you book on your own, of course, it's refundable for 24 hours. And we get some, bonuses of sitting together and special check-in and all that kind of stuff. I don't know how much it makes a difference with the check-in, but basically we come as a group and they treat us as a group, and we get, I think, seating. We get priority with seatings and all that stuff. Not priority seating, but priority with choice with seating like together. The drawback is that of course, we fly together. And if you guys have points on Delta and we decide to go United or an American or LL, and then people say, I'm paying for these flights, I might as well bank on these points. And then we find out that half the trip or more than half the trip are going down flights. We say, you know what, we need at least 12 people to do a group flight. And we don't even have that. So it's all gone down the drain. So basically, those are the plus. Another big plus of coming in a group is the feeling. You all get to the airport together. It's like the feeling of, this is a trip not from the airport in Israel, but the trip from Raleigh, North Carolina. And we're getting on that flight together, and we get to Israel together. We get on the bus and we start on the bus together. So it has a more of a group feeling to it. So these are the pluses and minuses, and this is something that I guess we'll have to decide as soon as we know.
So what I would recommend is that with the deposit you put in, I assume, JJ, you'll ask people about what their flight situation is, what they would like to do, or they could note if they would like to be part of a group flight or independently or something like that. Yeah, is that possible at that time? Early on?
Okay. We should do that sooner than later because...
Right. So, and I would say, like, also typically we leave either from JFK, New York, or Newark, New Jersey. So if some people go from there, meet us there, or meet us, in Tel Aviv, these things over time, more people do more independent choices for all kinds of personal reasons. So take a look at what your personal situation is like. The question that often gets asked, I'm just going to jump it right now, is JJ, people ask about security. What if there's a God forbid situations arise, et cetera? I mean, tell us about that.
99.9, I don't know, exaggerating here, of our trips do not require a security guard with us, unless you're going to specific areas. And in our case, we're not going to any of those areas. There's two separate questions here. One question would be, what would happen if a week before the trip or 2 weeks before the trip, there's, God forbid, a war going on, and what happens? It's called force majeure, and then we give all the money back. I do suggest for everybody to take out travel insurance, anywhere from basic reasons, and some people take travel insurance for any reason. Of course, that's more expensive. This trip that I told you about that we had before, we had 2 couples that canceled the day before the trip because of medical issues that just happened to happen the day before the trip, and they got all their money back. So it was worth for them to do that. In terms of security with, in general on the trip, listen, we are on daily contact with a part of the Ministry of Defense that deals with tourism, and they give us live updates about what is okay to do and what is not okay to do, and we do that with all of our trips. So we're on the ball with that kind of stuff. Thank God in the last 13 years we haven't had to deal with any of these issues, and hopefully we'll continue that way.
Exactly. And just for all the first timers, and JJ knows as well, I'll just say he could say it better, but I'll just add is like, Israel, contrary to some of the media you read, generally speaking, is an extraordinarily safe country in general. There, of course, like any experience, we are opening there is in Israel, there are situations. Sadly, also there in America, there's situations. So we always have to be aware of it. There is always some risk with anything, but in general, we're not traveling to areas as a general statement that are hotbeds of conflict. They are general tourist areas where many Israelis and other internationals are visiting. But sadly, things could occur, but we are under great support, and all the tour groups are on that kind of situation. All right, awesome. Tell us about COVID, RSV, and flu. I've been asked about that. What do you? I know you can't predict it's going to be like 9 months from now, but what's going on in terms of that kind of protection against disease? I guess what do you call it? Or illness on the trip. Let's say you get sick on the trip.
Okay, so we'll start with COVID. There is no COVID here anymore. I mean, there might be, but people don't care anymore. So there's no test, there's no PCR, there's no quarantine requirements, there's no nothing. Okay, if you have COVID and you're not feeling well, go lie in bed. It's fine. That's what it's all about. In terms of that's that. There's nothing more to say about that. That's the way it is here right now. There are places I know in the United States that still have these policies. Here, there's nothing.
So JJ, just to be clear, like on the trip, if someone, God forbid, gets COVID on the trip, obviously there's no governmental force but typically people then just like take a day off, they stay back in the room, something like this. Like it's their personal decision. Ultimately, you're basically saying
it's their personal decision. Exactly.
No one's forcing them, right?
If they want to stay in a separate room, they're gonna, they'll stay in a separate room and they'll have to pay extra for whatever that is. But that's their decision.
Got it.
Okay.
So everyone's clear. Okay, go ahead.
Medical insurance is necessary on this trip. So whoever your provider is in the United States, you must take a medical insurance. Some of the travel insurance agencies, by the way, also offer medical, so you might want to do that as well. In case of something, God forbid, happening, we will assist as much as we can. We'll get a doctor. If we need to take, God forbid, to emergency room, then we will assist with that as well. So all these things, of course, are that. And then what happens is when you have your insurance is that you make sure that you get a receipt from the doctor and writing down exactly what it was in English. And then usually, almost all times, the insurance back in America reimburses whatever money you took out for your pocket.
JJ, I just realized I have one other travel question people ask me, okay? I'd like you to dispel or perhaps clarify. Is it true that El Al is the best airline and the most secure, or are all the airlines under similar security measures and similar level of whatever? Because some people think El Al is the safest. What would you say?
So all flights that fly to Israel have an extra security stop. So that means when you go through and you check in your luggage and all that stuff, and you go through whatever you go through the baggage check, and you get to the let's say United Airlines direct flight to Israel, you have to go through another process of screening. It doesn't matter if you're El Al or you're not. I can tell you, I'll have to show you all afterwards, that on all the El Al flights, I know that they have, what do you call them? Like people sitting on the flight, that they are extra security people.
Yeah, plain clothed. Yeah.
Right. I don't know for sure that they have them on other airlines. So that's the only one thing that I can tell you that might be the difference. I don't know. Maybe they do have them on other flights. I don't know. I just had a friend who used to do that, and he worked for El Al, and he told me. So just so you know.
But just be aware, it's Israeli service on El Al. So, no, I'm just kidding. That was just a joke. It was just a joke. Okay. All right. Any other questions from the group here? Okay. Yeah. I want to say, I see here that Gail Barron's here. We somehow maybe missed Gail on the internet. So Gail, Neil, it's great to see you as well. Awesome. Welcome. Shalom.
Rabbi,
all right.
If we have questions in the future, I looked on the itinerary. I didn't see JJ's email. Should we run them through you?
JJ, is it okay to give your email on that? With the
100%. You can give my email out, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Right. So what I'm saying is that everyone here, so JJ is going to send me, first of all, send me the itinerary again, but make sure, but also the costs. I will then forward on to everybody who's on this, that RSVP'd for this call, and anyone else who shows interest, of course. It'll be all public. JJ, in the past, Mizraim have been made a little website. You guys still do that? Like a website?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. And you post the itinerary and the costs on there?
Yeah, we can do that for sure. But
all right, so that might be the
easy. It takes a little bit of time.
All right, so we'll start with me. You'll start by sending it to me.
Exactly.
And questions go directly to you, JJ. Is that correct?
Fine. Yeah, okay. I think questions have to do with with stuff in Israel.
So how about just for now, JJ, if you'd like put your email in the chat, is it okay?
Of course.
Great. I see in the meantime, while he's doing that Robin had great questions. How soon will final costs be settled? And what I presume on that, JJ, is that we're setting February 1st approximately, and we'll send this out as like a deadline for deposits. And then usually by around then, it's like you have some kind of settled price, or do you change it all the way close to June? Like when do you make a final?
So when we decide to close the registration, we know how many people are coming, and we can say this is the final cost. Also, by the way, Rabbi, now you and I might adjust the itinerary a little bit,
right?
And that might change
cost.
Here and there might change a little things. We might maybe take off a meal here, we might add this. So it might change the cost a little bit. When I'm talking a little bit, it's like minute amount, but more or less we'll know that once we close the registration for the trip.
Exactly. So I think it's important what JJ is saying here, like kind of putting out here, is that The prices were between approximately $4,000 and $4,500, depending on the amount. This could go up because of inflation, potentially. I hope not. And it could change slightly the itinerary, but we also probably take some things off. So we try to keep within that range regardless. Like we might take away, quote unquote, a meal. But this would still, in this ballpark, is probably what is likely in the end. All right. Vaccines, are they required for anybody?
No, not anymore.
So vaccine for it, but just say for all things, like not just COVID. Like are you required to have like a certain vaccination?
No, not that I can think of.
Okay. All right. Judy, there's a request. I think we've talked this over the time. We kept canceling because of COVID. We have a beloved relationship with a gentleman named Jamie, who is of British origin. Do we know the tour guide yet for it? Is Jamie confirmed? I know we were thinking about that.
Let me see who we got.
He will check. We definitely talked about that.
I'll let you know. I'm looking it up.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. No. We probably actually have somebody by the name of Josh Evanchen. I don't know if he ever guided you as well.
No, I don't know.
He's excellent.
Okay. I trust your judgment. I know I know the Margleys are very close to Jamie too, who's so special. We actually booked him for prior trips that kept getting canceled because of COVID. So I had to get rescheduled. So we may not be available during this time. He has a family too. Okay. Other questions before we wrap up this session?
Yeah, real quick. I had a question. Is besides the passport, is there any type of other security clearances or anything, any issues we should have to worry about? You know, we get to, Tel Aviv and they're like, oh, you have this, and that, or whatever. We can't let you in. Like, how is that?
No visa is required for Americans coming to the United States. That's the only thing that could come up. You need to have a passport, though, that's valid for 6 months more after you return to America. That means if you're returning to America on July 1st, your passport needs to be valid till whatever 6 months later is. What is that? The 1st of January 2024. So if you don't have that, they might not let you into the country. So you have to make sure that you're...
Sorry, what about Brazilians?
Brazilians, I have to check. I'm not sure, but I think the case is the same. I know that Israel has a good relationship with Brazil. I'll need to double check that. I'm not 100% sure about that.
I just wanted to throw one more thing in about security. So I just want to say, this is a long time from now, especially first times. We'll remind you to get closer. But obviously, when you're going through the security process, no one would do this. I'm sure no nicks here. But you take it seriously, you answer everything properly, you're sincere. One of the classic questions they'll say is, did you pack your own clothing? Or this is not the time to bring something to your relative right now. No joking around, and no one will do that. Be fine. It is true that they do random checks of certain people, and they may take more time. And this is all the reason why it's good to get to the airport very early, especially for the international part of the flight from Newark or from JFK, just to be sure that God forbid it's extra. But this is all done for your security. And everyone I've ever done this has always gone through. Essentially, you're going to be grateful for it because you want everyone to be checked closely. But I think it's good what Stefan said, be ready for some people it could be an intimidating experience. Some people it's actually nerve-wracking. Others, it's very comforting, but just that's way down the road. JJ, you agree? I assume concur? Yeah.
I concur.
Right. Okay. All right. Any other questions from anybody? This is a great session. So here's what I would say. Talk with your family and friends. It's $500 per person to put a deposit. If you said, you know what, I'm fired up, I'm putting on my deposit. Deposit is refundable. I will say, JJ and I will talk further. We're probably going to set a deadline of February 1st for our first kind of deadline of what's going on here. That will be that point. It is refundable. And at that time, when you send in your deposit, you should say whether you're considering if you're interested in a group flight or not. That will be helpful just as we continue on. Once we have a solid sense of our numbers, we're then going to get another deadline where it's going to become more final-ish later into the spring. And then we'll know our numbers for the final cost of the trip at that point. Okay. Let's see it. I think we've wrapped up our questions. So it's been fantastic. I also said we're psyched. I will say one of the things we're looking forward to do, and JJ and I've talked about this, we're going to add to, in addition to hopefully Tom's connections in the business community, we're also thinking about connecting to Alon Tal named Albert Rosenthal, who just served in the most recent Knesset under Yesh Atid, who is from Raleigh, North Carolina, and became a bar mitzvah at our shul on West Johnson Street. And Howard and Judy know him, and he's one of the kind of greatest, if I may say so, environmental leaders in Israel. He kind of started the environmental movement in Israel, and he's going to probably speak to our group as well. So that'd be cool as well. So that'd be something we're going to definitely make this Raleigh-centric, focus. We're psyched about that. All right, cool. As we say, let my people go. We're so excited. Send in your information. Look forward for emails from me with the money and itinerary and stuff like that. And ask JJ any further questions you have. And just look forward to a great trip together. Shalom, everybody.